The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around. What do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters. The very minds of the people we are trying to save. Until we do, these people are still part of that system. That makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Are you listening to me, Leo? Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening?
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
My name is Noel Chang. I'm a constable attached to the Mobile Reserve Division at the JCF SWAT team. I've been a member of this team for 2 fulfilling years. The training, of course, would have helped me to grow as well. I find it to be very fulfilling playing an active role in the crime fight and in developing my nation. Join the JCF and start a career.
Nuance. Noun. A subtle difference in or shade of meaning. Expression. Or sound.
Nuance. Noun. A subtle difference
Nuance.
in or shade of meaning.
Noun.
Expression.
A subtle
or
difference
sound.
in or shade of meaning.
Noun.
Expression.
A
or
subtle
sound.
difference in or shade of meaning,
Nuance.
expression, or sound.
Noun. A subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound.
Wake up, Neo. Wake up. We're back in another episode of Nuance Interviews. I'm your host, Michael Wood Jr., and this week we are going to talk to Miquel Wallace, who is a former Jamaican police officer SWAT team member. I think it's called the Jamaican Constabulary Force or something like that is what they call their police department. And I met Miquel in a way that, I think is one of the best ways to participate in trying to get the message of, it's not as my message, it's just this overall message of humanity and seeking to improve the justice system. He is a college student in Westfield, Massachusetts now, and he pushed for his school to have me come out and speak, and I ended up finding myself extremely fond of Miquel and the similarities we have in our story. He's about 10 years younger than me. But anyway, he pushed with his school after seeing some videos and seeing some of the ideas put out there over the years to get me to come out and speak in an event that they were having at Westfield University in Massachusetts. And thanks to Miquel, I had to spend some time back out in the cold of the Northeast last year when he had me come out and speak. And I'm not sure there's a recording of that, but that went really well. It was interesting, the speech that I had there. I gave pretty much the normal one for a lot of people who didn't know me. When they don't know my backstory, I kind of have to give the backstory to lead into anything. Otherwise, why would anybody listen to what I'm saying? So after giving that general backstory and I had mine, but some of the other speakers that were there ended up very left, but the leftists, the ideas were, the normal good ideas. I feel like they're benevolent from the heart, where they say, we want to do these things to make things better. We want to get universal health care, and the people stopping us are evil, and they're this, and we need to crush them out, and they're our enemy. And I had to get up and say something in front of everybody about. I just had to challenge the the rhetoric, which is funny because now that's kind of the term Trump, and that was really a lot of the points that we're bringing up. But the idea that as long as we're the oppressor, things will be fine was really prominently on display at this concept, where we're supposed to be looking out for social justice and the humanities, but all the humanity is left out of the humanities because of this desire to be the oppressor. And I mean, we can call it being the oppressor or the benevolent dictator or whatever it is, but just the idea of controlling the scene completely. But so it ended up leading to some productive talks. I think things went well. Got along with a lot of the people there, which was a criminal justice college. Spoke to a class the day before, and things seemed like they went over well, and it was receptive to kind of have this different idea of policing. But I felt general idea, the way it would be received is that's a great concept, wonderful. We're not going to do anything about it. We're going to continue on the way we're doing. Because this is the way it's done, this is the way it's always been done, kind of idea, and I doubt any of that will change anytime soon. But listening to this interview, we were in a high-class hotel room that they put you up in when you speak at one of these events, Best Western or something. But we sat there and we just had a conversation, and I think you'll find him as becoming as I do. He seems like your little brother that's trying to do good in the world, and you want to help him do it. And he very much, we can't say that he took that red pill, not that far in the way that is commonly accepted, but he's aware of the matrix, and it's really nice to hear somebody young with a little bit of experience articulate his ability to see from such a different culture, because that's one thing I believe in, and I think you're going to see it wherever you look, that humans are humans. And we keep thinking our problems are unique, but our problems are not unique. They're just human problems, and everyone else is the same and is struggling through the same issues. So I remember being struck by the parallel of Miguel's story and mine, and I'm sure that comes through in here. I'm going to play some Jamaican music, and I'll come back after this. It's been a long time since I heard this, so I'll listen to it with you, and then I'll chime back in afterwards. Enjoy. So just be like honest, just be yourself. Yeah. And like don't say anything that you don't want to say. Yeah. Like don't worry, and if you want to cut something out, we'll just cut it out. Word. Okay. Let's do it. So I'm here with Miquel Wallace. Is that how I say it? Yeah. Who is a former Jamaican police officer and current student, but is about to graduate, undergraduate in what field?
Social work and political science. It's a double major.
Okay, and obviously the Jamaican accent comes through immediately to everybody. Right. So, let's start from the beginning. What was it like growing up in Jamaica, and what led you towards the concept of wanting to be a police officer there?
Okay, so growing up, a bit of historical context of what life was like. I grew up in a pretty large family, right? It consisted of course, mom, which is very common back home, where there's an absentee father. right? So it was just my mom, 6 brothers, 1 girl, so seven kids in the household. Sister was much older, so she played like a mom's role as well. You know, going through primary school, high school, what I saw was that my mom, she was a cashier when we were younger, but she didn't stop there. She moved up to being like a nurse's assistant, dental assistant, until she eventually became a registered nurse. So she worked her ass off to ensure that we got through. So my thing was that, and the sad part is, of all my brothers, my oldest brother, he's a structural engineer, so he made it, so to speak. But the 2 brothers after him, they didn't do so well, which is a fault of the educational system back home. But that's a different story.
Do so well by the judgment of income?
Not by the judgment of income, but in my opinion, they are talented, but not in the way that educational curriculums, they're very, I'd say, conservative. So if you don't fit in a bubble, you're seen, if you're not getting 100 on a test, you're not smart. But these guys are brilliant in other fields, like one of the best decorative tiler I've seen, one of the best musicians in Jamaica, but not so good with what they dictated should be were. So here I come, I was the last one of the older boys. I was the last one coming up, so I've decided that, okay, I got to do well in high school. Did extremely fucking well, graduated like 2nd in the class. This was in 2007. Left school, applied for law school, got accepted, went to the student loan union, and they were like, well, we don't lend loans for law students or med students. So that's for rich people.
Wow. Oh, okay.
Pretty much. So if your folks ain't got that money, do something else. So law, medicine, those 2 fields, they didn't lend money. So I couldn't go because, of course, my mom is a fucking poor, less than middle class nurse with 7 children. Sat out for like almost a year not doing anything, and I decided that, you know what? Because one of my teachers in high school was also a police officer. She was like a superintendent, which was a high-ranking police officer back home. So she was the one who actually encouraged me to like, hey, you got the qualifications, you got something to offer, so I think you should do it. I'm like, okay, fuck it, I'll do it. What
do you think she saw in you?
Well, she didn't quite say, because if I was to assume what she saw, it was the ability to think critically and question shit that doesn't make sense, kind of thing. Because my argument since I got old enough to know shit was that, okay, something can be legal, but that shit doesn't make it right. Legality and morality are 2 fucking different shit. So it can be, slavery was fucking legal. Women not being allowed to vote, that was legal, but was it right? So that's what I'm always arguing from, because she taught me law. So I was always arguing that, yeah, this is law, but it's bullshit.
Where do you think that comes from? I have this pet argument we can get into later, that I think that is growing, that there are more people that will be culturally aware and be self-critical and critical of, like, might does not make right, that the law does not make it moral. So where are you getting your moral from? Where are you getting these ideas?
Okay, so I think where they came, one, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm not sure how much you know about the Jehovah's Witness, but the older I get, it that shit has a stronger hold on you when you're out there. Not really. It's like a bittersweet relationship with a fucked up ex you had. You just can't shake it. But there was a lot of shit that I saw. The first thing I can remember that made me aware of what is right and what is legal is that in the Jehovah's Witness congregation, they got the rank structure stuff, like with elders, various positions in the church, but all those top ranking positions would be men. Mm-hmm. And there were men who weren't half as educated as my mom. At this point, she was a fucking registered nurse, extremely brilliant, worked her ass off to get somewhere. And there are dudes who can barely read. So I'm saying, so when I asked her, why isn't she an elder? So she was explaining that that's just a woman can't fill that role, it has to be a man. So I'm like, why? She's like, well, within the scope of the congregation, she said, well, that's the law in here. So I'm like, law is law, but it's not right. That's stupid. So that's where I kind of developed that. Folks can actually say something and say, oh, here's what the policy said. They can show you something in black and white. And it's true, but it's not right. So I'm saying, okay, well, it's legal, but it's not right. It's not right that they're pretty much.
I don't even know why I stopped at one point. I have to cut it up anyway.
No, we can continue. Just getting started.
Except for me losing my pen. Okay, so it's easy to see. You see that it's easy to see that the things right and wrong are not what is codified.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that lead to enforcing the codification?
Hold up, what do you mean by that?
So as the police officer,
mm-hmm.
your job is to enforce the established codified wrong. So how are you seeing police as a means to address this conflict?
Okay, so fast forward, I'll speak a bit about personally how I saw it, because initially, even why I decided to follow the advice of my teacher was that there was this uprising somewhere in Jamaica where thugs like cleared out almost half of a neighborhood. Folks had to leave their homes, cars, and shit. I'm like, that's not right. So I'm like, okay, how can I do something about this? And I'm like, shit, the only avenue to do this was to be a cop, because I grew up knowing that, the cops, they were supposed to be good at least, and that's the avenue that you can do the greatest good, right? Went through the training, you were kind of indoctrinated, because of course the older folks are saying to you that, this is how this shit is done. If you want to be respected, if you want to be tough, this is the kind of shit you do for it. 20 years old on a SWAT team, I felt invincible, fucking M16, AR-15 gunslinging thing. So we were harsh, we went in hard, we did a lot of shit that stroked your fragile ego as a man. But one of the things that struck me one day was, it was a conversation I had with my grandma. At this time, this was like 2010. And of course, she was advanced in age and stuff, and she just as any grandma would, she just politely said to me that she's so proud because she's pretty sure. She didn't even ask, she was pretty sure. And being the same kid that my mom worked her ass off to get somewhere, so don't forget that stuff, and respect, which is what we teach you guys. Respect the CEO, respect the janitor kind of shit. And that stayed with me, because I'm like, whoa, I'm out here and I'm not being respectful, to be honest. I'm like, okay, this is the law, this is what we're gonna do. But that shit dawned on me where I'm like, why did I join this? I did a self-evaluation. Why did I become a police officer? And that reminded me of why. And I'm like, okay, the system, a lot of persons come through the gates of training with good intentions. But at the end of that shit, even with the best intentions, you're around persons where you would be the odd one out to be thinking to do the right shit. So of course the easy thing to do is go with what's going on. But I'm like, no, I see avenues. It might not be huge, but I see avenues where I can actually do shit it would be considered illegal, but it's right. Not arresting a fucking 18-year-old.
But then who's determining right?
Exactly.
Is it Miguel? Does Miguel determine right?
In those situations, yes.
I mean, that's what I get. That's what I get asked.
Yeah.
Who
determines right? In that situation, that's what I determined. Right would be, in some cases, the opposite of what the law is. That's the sad truth.
So what would be right then?
So an example would be arresting and...
What's the standard, though? So, like, what makes something moral?
What makes something moral?
Because that's what we want to do, right? We want to be moral. We want to codify our morality into a law that's good for everybody.
True. True. But what I would consider right from a personal explanation would be, if I can do something or the lack thereof that would allow someone to still maintain the dignity of a human being. They're not physically hurt and they can both of us walk away with our dignity. to me, that's something that would be considered moral. Because when I think of moral, I think about something that's gonna cause someone else shame at the expense of you looking good. Arresting someone, it's theoretical shaming because that shit stays with you. So in that particular example, if I don't arrest this kid, he walks away with his dignity. The cop didn't lock him up. I didn't hurt him. I walk away because that's my definition of good, at least. It's what I can do at the moment. I get to go home.
But isn't that mitigating? Because your goodness as an individual then is mitigating the harmful system.
Yeah.
So we're still not getting to what is beneficial for that kid and what is moral for that kid. So, like, I feel like that's a conundrum that any good cop is stuck in. The best you can do is mitigate the harm of the system.
But being powerful is a bit like being ladylike. So if you have to say you are, you probably ain't. So I think I like America most of all on the days when people are not going around shouting USA, USA, we're number one, we're the greatest. I prefer the days when they don't do that, when they're probably most to be admired.
What is it that makes us boast about our greatness and belittle others? What is it that keeps us from ascending beyond the immediate? I cannot help but wonder what Hitchens would say today. It is a thought that somewhat haunts me as I stumble through communicating a similar belief of many before me, that we are brothers and sisters of the human race, with core values shared among us, which are hidden in the labels and divisions we create.
And if you understand freedom, it's based on tolerance and nonviolence. So if it's tolerance, it should be bringing all kinds of people together, and that's following our Constitution. We shouldn't be fighting among ourselves, because we shouldn't be fighting in Washington. If we all take the same oath of office, where does the fight come from? Somebody is messing up somewhere.
Libertarians proclaim reducing government interference because all Americans should be free to live their lives and pursue their interests as they see fit, as long as they do no harm to another. That peaceful, honest people should decide for themselves how to live their lives without fear of criminal penalties, and that the government's responsibility, if any, should be protecting its citizens from force and fraud.
The ruling class has always taught and trained you to believe it to be your patriotic duty to go to war and to have yourself slaughtered at their command.
The socialist soapbox calls for a classless society with communal ownership and perspective that is driven to enhance freedom, justice, and solidarity towards a goal of peace. Peace, of course, includes police abolishment, which I must say is highly unlikely to ever be a reality, but it is the only ethical goal.
Right, forget about effectiveness or not effectiveness. You don't get to confiscate my money just because you and your friends vote to take it.
The deliberate pragmatism of conservative thought espouses the value of moral order and building off the best of the past with long-term goals that are achieved mainly through community and family with an ideally restrained and fiscally prudent government.
People are born to be free, and that their basic instinct is the desire to free themselves from coercion, authority, and oppression.
The ideal liberal is said to believe in that natural goodness of human beings and the intrinsic value of individual liberty, that to have an honorable society, we must have moral equality across sex, race, birth origin, religion, gender, class, wealth, etc., which is achieved through nonviolent modifications of institutions.
With certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
America, America, America. Cannot help but believe we have steered ourselves quite off course.
True. Well, that's true.
So what is good?
What is good? I guess that's a moving target.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, sure. Good can be a moving target. I absolutely agree.
And good, for example, maybe for a different example, because good, honestly, knowing the benefits of marijuana now, maybe good would be leaving that fucking kid with his weed.
Okay, sure.
So that could have been good when I was looking back at it in retrospect. But it was a matter of meeting. At the end of the day, it's still kind of in a way, it's kind of sucking your own dick, to be honest, because on one end, you're like, okay, I go home and sleep comfortable because I didn't arrest this kid from the inner city. In which that could be one way to look at it, because of course you arrested 100 others, but you didn't do this one, so I can sleep comfortable. So that's still, you know.
Yeah, we go into the system wanting to do good,
yeah,
and we get satisfied by not doing harm. And that's a weird place to be.
That's a weird place to be. Well, it reminds me, honestly, I've heard politicians for years say, when I flip-flopping, for example, in the political circle, it's viewed as something that is shamed when you flip-flop.
Is that ridiculous?
Yeah, that's,
you mean somebody changed their mind in the face of new evidence?
Are you fucking crazy? So I'm like, wow. So it was kind of being in that dark spot where, okay, you are one person against 15,000 fellow officers and military, right? And you know, wanting to do the good, but what practically at this given time or this given situation that you're faced with, this is what you can do with. What I know to be good now wasn't what I know to be good then. That's the difference, because that time I still thought weed was bad for you and shit like that. So I'm like, okay, I can find a middle ground by not arresting this kid. But it was still bad that he was smoking. But if it was now, for example, with the knowledge I have now, with fucking probably 7 years past since going to college exposed to different shit, I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't have trouble. I would have gone about my business. It ain't troubling me, kind of shit. So that's the difference. At least growth kind of changes the perspective of what's considered, what I'd consider good.
Yeah, you're just helping me get through that issue. I wonder if it's even if there's enough good cops, can that still change? Like, so we even look at that like, well, there's not enough of us, but then that kind of is like shitting on these other human beings, these other cops, thinking that we're better than them. And are we really? I don't know if we are.
Yeah.
So is it a matter of enough of us, or is like the way to do good really attacking the system, and then how do we attack the system from inside versus outside?
Yeah. Well, with that, the problem is, as you said, it's not that there's not enough of us and more of them. The problem, in my opinion, would be person's conviction. Because as convict, right, as much as I hold trying to be a good cop at the time, I try my best to be a good cop. There are persons who honestly believe that they're being a good cop by upholding these laws. And
I'm convinced that Hitler thought he was doing good.
Exactly. So, and
we all disagree,
right? But that's the fact. That's the fact. Because I look at it, and that's how I see it. I know persons where honestly, they are some of the best human beings I've met were police officers. That's a given. But they were doing things that morally, legally, was the right thing to do. But morally, to me, it was heartless and it was wrong. But they honestly felt like they were doing something good. And they're looking at it, okay, I get this person off the street, or I do this, it's doing a greater good, because stopping this person from doing something more than likely to themselves is going to protect 10 other persons, kind of stuff. So it starts with the conviction, what are you? Because it's hard to go and tell someone that, okay, it's legal, but it's not right.
How disconnected are you guys in Jamaica from the arrest process? So what happens if you arrest somebody for an offense? What do you do with that individual?
Okay, so I'll give you two examples, a minor crime and a major crime. So a minor crime, for example, we arrest someone for using a curse word, because that's an offense in Jamaica to use a famous Jamaican curse word like bumbleclap. Someone says that.
What does bumbleclap mean?
Exactly, but it's considered by the laws of Jamaica, it's considered indecent language. Okay. So you arrest someone for that. It would be
whoa. You can be arrested for just total speech?
Yeah, but whatever is considered.
So there's no freedom of speech in Jamaica?
Pretty much, no. And of course, you're coming from the slave plantation laws, model of the British system, so we're still there. So you take that.
Britain doesn't have free speech, which a lot of people forget.
Exactly. It's the same back home. take that person to the precinct, you do the write-up. It's a minor offense, so you won't remand that person in police custody. You just bail them back to themselves. They just get their papers that they should turn up at court, whatever date. Major offense or a murder, right? I'm gonna arrest someone for a murder. One, if you are not known, if you are not known, where you will have to face the ID parade. If I'm the first contact officer, the first thing I should do is ensure that, okay, I get a hold of you in custody. Then I ensure that your face is covered. So whether it be putting a shirt or whatever over your face.
Why do you cover their face?
Because they might face an identification parade. And the lawyers would argue, it's stupid, but the lawyers would argue. The identification parade?
Yeah, but like, why are they masked? Like, why are you not seeing, who's gonna?
No, okay, so.
Like a lineup, you mean?
Yeah, they're gonna go into a lineup.
Okay.
So if you arrest them, you don't want their face to be visible to say that they.
Oh, okay, all right. So you're thinking about it more not to taint the.
Yeah, that's why it's stupid.
We don't do that. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, we do that with high-profile cases.
Yeah, they do that with.
Okay.
Bring that person in. Of course, that person is not gonna be. Very rarely a murder suspect is granted bail, and if they are, it's not from the precinct. Only the court has that authority to grant. That's bullshit, a matter of fact. I went through training thinking that until I read the Constitution of Jamaica, it said the only crime that the police is not authorized to grant bail for is treason.
Okay.
So even if you're a murder suspect, if I deem it fit to grant you bail, I can, but they'll beat that shit in our heads.
I think we're probably the same way.
Right? So, but you never read it for yourself to know if it's true. So you take that person to the precinct, you do the necessaries, and they're remanded in jail. They're not going anywhere. So that's the. But how?
So when do you see them as an officer next?
When would the prisoner see?
When do you, as the arresting officer, see
the prisoner next? The next. Okay, so as a detective, if you are the person in charge of the case, I would see him when I'm interviewing him in the presence of his attorney. If I were just a SWAT team member who did the arrest, I wouldn't see him until I'm testifying at court if they need me to say, yes, this was the person, whatever. So that's, but if I'm the investigating officer, I see him a lot. Because if I got to question him, then I got to go do the paperwork and weigh the evidence if he's going to be charged. Then I will come back and let him know that you're now officially charged. This is your court date. If there's new information, I got to interview him again. And so,
what about post-conviction?
Post-conviction. Person shot. No, that's not a thing. You try to hide from them motherfuckers post-conviction.
So what in the hell is different from anything that we're doing here?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same.
Do you think that you would feel different if you had known or had to see a suspect 10 years later, 5 years later, or you saw their families or their kids?
If I would have 10 years post-conviction?
Yeah, I mean, like, say you had to keep up with the
anybody
you arrested.
I've done that.
Okay.
Personally.
And how did that affect you?
Personally, it has always affected me to arrest, and honestly, unless it's a heinous crime, in which I honestly believe that those folks should be killed, right? And I'm talking about like child molesters and shit like that. So that's different. But seeing someone, I had a case with this kid. He was 18 years old. His girlfriend was 15 years old. In Jamaica, the age of consent to have sex is 16. But she was 15. He was an adult, 18 years old, but 3 years gap, right? And I arrested him, but I arrested him with the intention to bail him. He was still in high school, but my commanding officer was like, "Hey, no, we're not bailing anyone. We need our arrest rates. Our past monthly report was shit, so we ain't bailing no one, and we're arresting regardless of how minor we're arresting folks to make the report look good." It was over my head because he called the chief for that division, the superintendent for the division we would hold him in custody, and told him that he should not be bailed, and these are higher ranking officers, so I couldn't. So that I felt particularly obligated to keep in contact with that kid, right? So even when I went to interview him with his lawyer, I got the lawyer that I got because his mom was poor. the lawyer was a past student at the high school that I went to, so we're all in this old boys club. So I explained what happened. He represented him free of charge. And, you know, I visited him, I brought food and shit. Because I'm looking at this kid. My brothers at the time were almost 18, my younger brothers. And I'm like, shit, this could be my. So I did. It was more of my conscience wouldn't allow me to sleep or be comfortable. And I keep in touch with that kid. Even whenever I go back home, I might see him. And we got a good relationship. And it's just a thing like, I'm like, tracking, you know, what's so different about these guys, whether they are convicted or not convicted. The only difference I've seen is that someone who is convicted, they actually become a bad person usually because they're bitter at the system and you can understand.
You're marginalized. You know,
exactly.
When you're marginalized, it's hard to be part of society. That's the thing we do. We say, we're going to kick you out of our society and then we're going to shame you for not being part of our society.
Right, and put you back in that same society. So folks, so that's what happened. Folks who go away can't come back, can't get a job. They're bitter at you who arrested them because they're like, fuck, you had the power to not do it even though it was right. So that's one of the things I try to, persons who are even charged for murder, I try to like divorce myself from dealing with the fact. I'm like, fuck, this is Constable Wallace and not Miguel doing, because Miguel wouldn't do this shit, to be honest. But if I don't do it, I don't get paid.
Yeah. We do a lot of shit for money.
Right.
And so I think these things are easier to define when we're talking about like homicide, and rape, and stuff like that. But when you put somebody in prison for 30 years because they had grounded up flowers that somebody said they weren't allowed to have.
Right, put in their own body, shit.
Do you guys do that too?
Of course. That's done. Their person doing their 20. There are persons in Jamaica that in the face of new modern technology coming to light, a lot of persons who were on death row, even though they abandoned the death penalty, but persons who were given death sentences in the 70s or 80s who new evidence showed that these guys were actually innocent. So they're like, okay, after 30 years, 33 years behind bars, they're like, okay, we were wrong, so go on, be a good person.
Yeah, how could you possibly do such a thing?
And those persons come back into society. They are the ones that, to no fault of their own, but there's literally nothing to do. You can be so qualified and it's hard for you to get a job to survive.
Let alone someone last 33 years.
Right? Someone fresh from prison, hell no. So they usually ain't got nothing, unless they got families who are, would still support them. Otherwise, they're back to the streets, they're back to doing shit that will get them back to the place that they're
from. So your cops were protected from seeing any of the harm, really, of their actions, too. Yeah, I feel like that's where we are. Like, once I got to know people later on, and then saw how the system was affecting them, but then you're like, damn, because like the whole other time, you were just filling out a report. Like, you're not translating that report. Well, I'm not saying you, like, at least I wasn't as a dummy, or a lot of other people, wasn't translating that report into, like, this dude's fucking life.
Yeah, it doesn't stop here when you put that period. When you put that full stop, it doesn't stop there. So that's so true. I based on where I work, I've seen it, because one of the things I would say it's a blessing in disguise where learning is concerned. Persons who we arrest, there's someone who might do 5 years locked up, right? And then they're let off on parole, or for whatever reason they deem fit to release them. But a condition of them being out is that they got to report to our precinct, like on a week or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You gotta just show up and we sign your shit to say that or whatever. And there was someone, he was coming there for maybe like 2-3 months, and the first couple of weeks he's vibrant and he's lively, he's hopeful, like, I'm fresh out of the pen, I gotta do so much. And the more I saw him, the more demotivated, and each time we saw this guy, he looked angrier and angrier. So one day I was saying to him, like, aren't you happy to be out of jail? Like, why are you looking so upset? And he's like, honestly, it would have been better if I had fucking stayed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, because you're not marginalized, you have some kind of rank order, you have some kind of structure.
That's what he said. He said when he was in jail, he was someone. That's what the dude said. When I'm in jail, I'm someone. But out here is no one. You can't get a job. You literally can't eat. So what the hell am I doing out here? and you're trying to, no one looks past what is written on a paper about you 5 years ago, whether it be true or not.
I'm really struck by like there's no differences.
No.
It's like
no
everyone always
difference.
wants to look for the better policing, and it's like, well, there isn't one.
Yeah,
I mean, and look at what you're saying is the exact same thing. So I think the causations of crime would be the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of a little struck with where did your dad go?
Okay, so what I think I can count on both hands of how much time I've seen my dad in my entire life. What I heard was when I was born in 1990, right? And if you see my dad, we all look alike, like twins. You would probably be surprised if you see her. And we all look like her dad, right? Yeah, that's what they all say. Oh, fuck Tyrone and Tyrese, they're all the fucking same. But right, so when I heard that when I was born, he left because we were living in a one-room apartment in the rural areas of Jamaica. And my mom said when maybe a week after I came from the hospital, he just got up one day and said he was going to try to get a bigger apartment. Mm-hmm. So he left, packed a little bag and left to get a bigger apartment. He just didn't come back home. She just didn't see him, hear from him, nothing. So he came back around I think this was 1996. I was 6 years old at the time. That's the first time I ever seen him in my life. After that, he disappeared for 3 years. Didn't see him again until 99. Then in 06, I started seeing him regular because he came back around a bit. But he has never really been there. He just disappeared. But funnily enough, I was so bitter and angry towards my dad when I was younger. Because of course, even though when I see him, I don't call him. I can't call him dad. I just can't do that. So I call him by his last or first name or whatever anyone else calls him. But the older I got, and the more exposed intellectually I got, I realized that. I said, why? Because I genuinely don't believe that he just got up one day and be like, I'm going to be a fucked up father. Something happened, right? So, I dug into his background, what was his life like as a kid? And I realized that when he was very young, maybe 7 years old, his mom left to live in England, and she was there for 30 years. So he grew up bouncing between aunts and uncles, and so I'm saying that shit played into him having attachment or commitment. Even before she left, she wasn't really there anyway. She was living in the island, but she wasn't being a mother to him. It was her mom being a mother to him, kind of thing. So I'm just saying that all that shit played into the trauma that he faced from that, brought over, that shit spilled onto us. At least I'm old enough to but my brothers, they still ain't past that shit. They're still bitter because they're not looking at a biopsychosocial aspect of why was this guy like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we have to ask, what would make us do anything, when it comes to anything that another human being would be, what would have to happen to us to make us act that way? And I feel we had a whole generation that does it. We have this strikingly similar story. So that's why I'm trying to explore this with you. I mean, same thing. My dad was gone. I never even really knew him. Don't really know him now. Don't give a crap. A lot of people think that some of us are harmed by our dads leaving. Me, I never gave a fuck. I just didn't care. It's whatever, man. And so because someone else's construct involves having a dad there, and the world creates that scenario that it should be that way, then your dad could be in this place where he feels like he can't get that 2-bedroom apartment that he's supposed to be, so he's not being a real man. So why bother being a man at all?
Take myself out of the picture.
So it's this whole, everything is this big complex thing, and it leads us to these different things. I'm the oldest of 6 brothers and sisters. We have all these same damn things, and it's leading us to these same conclusions in these same types of fields. So that's why I'm there's something going on that I'd like to know what it is that is changing this thing. One of the things that is, you've heard it before, that's most correlated to crime is a fatherless home, and that's actually true. That, and then they'll say black in America, they have less fathers in their homes, and that's not true. The thing is, they're less married. It doesn't mean that the person's not active in your life. So those are different types of things. So what they're actually doing, is, in my judgment, is you're judging local instability, and then the rest of the culture having a father taken out of the home by whether it's a lack of opportunity or whether it's going to prison because of police and stuff like that is just another indicator of a local instability that we have. So you can have two lesbian parents that are two women, and they can obviously raise a kid just fucking fine. It has nothing to do with an actual dad. It has to do with this local instability. And I fear that as police, we exacerbate the local instabilities and we actually make them worse. And so if we weren't involved in these things, then would we be better? But then we're trying to fix these things, then we end up in the fucking police departments. Trying to make sense of the circle, you know? Like
feeding back into that same circle is crazy. It's crazy.
And so how, if we know and we can see how we contribute to the local instability by taking a father out of the home, seeing that traumatic ripple, I really wonder if there would be a morality switch that happens in policing that gives what you said, which is the conviction. Because the conviction's not there. Because how can the conviction be there if you don't get to be a man after you do the right thing? To me and you, standing up against the system is being a man. We're defining that differently. But the other people are defining a man as somebody that provides for their household, does the right thing. So the moment you're a whistleblower as a police officer, you're not going to be a police officer anymore. So how do you continue to be a man?
That's true. That's true. How do you fit in that stipulated bubble for the man, what a man should be? That's so true. But that's a huge challenge, and that is where it starts, from person's convictions, really, and it's what you believe to be as you said, what is right. What would be good.
Fucking know, right? I think we all
know. That's right.
Like humanly, what we're ultimately saying is to treat another human being like a fucking human being, like our brother and our sister, or you know, the ultimate rule of how we treat somebody how you want to be treated. That's fine. Basic obviousness. That's why it's in like every religion and every fucking country and every concept. These things are on the surface, but we're not enabling ourselves to follow that.
I'm under a Dangerman piece, a Haitian piece, so don't call it occupation, but she's music, you know, and I am occupation.
And I want that conviction. I wonder if there's enough of that conviction where we can flip a switch.
And you know, honestly, I think at the core of every human being, you know, it might sound silly, but at the core of every human being, I think that we are all good. At our cores, we're good. Hardly anyone.
Do you know that's the number one principle of being a liberal? Seriously. So the liberal mentality of America, one of the first rules is that all people are inherently good. So whenever you see a liberal talking about sending someone to jail, remember that they're not a liberal.
True. They are good at their core. So it's finding out where do you get to the road where you are, your culture or whatever socialization you encounter defines what you view as right and what you view as wrong. For example, something that happens here, of course, it's not, the earth is now globalized, so almost whatever happens here, it's happening back then. But something simple, for example, where the difference here, and I'm speaking specifically to here in Massachusetts, Amherst, where I live, coming from Kingston City in Jamaica, where there's a term in Jamaica, informer, which is a term here, but talking to the cops or speaking of anyone else's business, that's like high treason to do. So that's one of the, where legality is concerned, that's the main challenge to fighting crimes in Jamaica. Right? I think there's a couple hundred.
It sounds pretty damn American to me.
Right.
I'm saying that. We're not supposed to cooperate with the police.
You're not supposed to fucking cooperate. But coming here, living in a predominant white community, going to a predominant white school, where if they see something wrong, they are not afraid to take their phones up and call the cops, especially if you're black. Like, they'll do that shit, right? They don't have any qualms with cooperating with the cops because they believe that we are doing this to protect our neighborhood, and that their conviction tells them that that's the right thing to do. And these guys are old, probably in their 70s. It's hard to bend their thinking at this stage. Where I'm looking at it from the flip side. Hell, if my neighbor is smoking weed or playing music, that's not affecting me. There's still oxygen in the air. I still inhale. I still exhale. So why should I, right? That's what I genuinely can believe, that whatever someone want to do, just let them do. They're not causing harm to me. Fuck, if they want to harm themselves, by all means, if you want to do that, go ahead too. But they're not harming me. But we're just cultured and have whole different convictions. And the law and order are persons who believe that in order for them to be safe means that they have to build this cage and put other human beings in it in order for me to be safe, while you're doing the same shit they're back there for. Mm-hmm. So there's always this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens on a lot of levels. I have a real hard time explaining that, look, I was an employee of law, and it was a 70-year-old black woman that was calling me, telling me to take that 16-year-old black kid off the corner. Like, so what are we looking at here as a society? We can't just look at the employee, the pawn. We have to look at our whole culture that is saying to do these ideas and to challenge these ideas, that it's not some like far out threat that's saying to put these kids in a prison cell. It's us. Yeah. It's our grandmother. It's not some distant person. Like, our grandmas call the police to put non-drug dealing kids in prison. And so because they think you're doing good by the law and the rules. So if we don't get people to see humans as more empathetic, and like you said, that small tribe, that small family, that kid is your brother, if we don't have the conviction to cross over that, I think we're really fucked. But I think that there's more, like, you're just a little bit younger than me, you're like a decade younger than me. And I feel like each decade you look and there's more and more of the people that see. Yeah. You see through the facade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Take, just to add to what you just said, take religion, for example. Like the older generation get persons our age are within even a 5-year span of our age. They're waking up to this shit that we're becoming less and less religious. That's where, it's with exposure, everyone is getting exposed.
Or we're changing for new ones called Republicans and liberals. They just get new religions.
So that's a new thing, but that's so true. That's where the more the society progresses as time goes on, the more persons see through that shit, that there's not like someone in space controlling the shit that happens. So passing a law, which is like the hardest thing, the US Constitution, only one change has ever been made, and that's civil rights, just accepting that black persons were 3/5 of a human being. But they hold this 200 plus years old paper as this is what we have to do, and if we don't do it, we're going to burn in hell if we don't do it. That's so free. It's within. So the point I'm making is that it's within our control to do this shit. it's within our control to make the change, have the right convictions that we need. It's within our control, get the right person, the right kind of thinking, make changes to those police departments, those political offices. They are persons, well-thinking persons, and it doesn't require religion to know that something is right or wrong.
So what do you think should be the ultimate purpose of policing?
Ideally what I think policing, ideal policing would look like is, ideal policing would be, one, it would be more intervention from the aspect of, first, every police officer would have to be trained as a social worker, if you ask me. And I say that against the background that I'm a social work major in college, right? And what I've learned is I came in with a bit of advantage from experience, age, the stuff that I did before. But what I realized that social work, the core of social work is, regardless of the position a client is in, when they come to you, you're doing something that's called meeting the client where they are. So whatever is going on in their life, that's what you're dealing with. And you examine the biological factors, psychological factors, and social factors. Why is this individual doing this or going through this, right? Not that they're doing this, so let's...
Why?
Why?
Literally, policing only looks at what?
What? Why are these folks doing this shit, right? So that's ideally what police officers should. They should not be reactive and after the fact.
So in an ideal world, where would policing be in 100 years, ideally?
You shouldn't even have fucking police.
That's short. Number one rule to any activist is you should be defeating your own purpose.
Yeah.
So if your purpose is to fight crime, you must be primarily focused with defeating the need for your existence.
Exactly. So ideally, you shouldn't need. You were telling me that in Japan, like this, the precincts closed down and whatever, and there's zero crime overnight. It's capable of that shit happening.
Sure. So any Americans out there who have never been to Japan, and I'm not talking Okinawa, I'm talking the mainland, real Japan. The police departments do not work at night. The subways shut down, the trains shut down, the city, other than like mainstream Tokyo, will shut down. And it is a big shock for an American, I assure you, that I've been out there at 2 o'clock in the morning where everything is shut down, it's completely dark, and you're in the middle of a huge city. You think there should be danger, elements of mystery, but you can fall asleep on a park bench with $500 in your pocket. If you dropped it on the ground, I'm telling you, somebody will walk by, pick up the $500, put it back in your pocket, tuck you back in, and go about their day. And it is amazing. And it's like, we are clearly doing this wrong.
We're doing this stuff in reverse. Well, historically, going backtracking a little, where I've always had, even before I joined the police services, I've always had a problem with it, because as with anything else that I do or partake in, I look at historical background to give historical context. And when I examine why, speaking for Jamaica, and probably, well, not just Jamaica, policing overall, why was policing developed in the first place? It wasn't developed because human beings were being inherently bad. It was developed to control the bad shit that we do to these folks. When they rebel against this bad shit, we need someone to control them so we can continue doing the bad shit that we were already doing. They weren't bad. So something is wrong there. If you should, from the get-go, you didn't need a police force until you start fucking with people. So they didn't get up and be like, oh, we're inherently bad. You started fucking with them, so you had to develop this control mechanism for them, and that's what policing is strictly for.
Have you seen Chris Rock's new special?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay, so he just came out a new special. He has a line in there where he says something about, like, I was totally anti-police, and then, like, I own property. And
And that's exactly what police are for. Protecting the rich people's property. And our function to do that is putting human beings in a fucking cage. And in America, in conditions that it's illegal to put an animal in.
You got human beings sitting in that stuff. That's, yo.
If you treated a horse or a dog like you treat a human being in a prison, you would go to prison.
Exactly. You can't put poor old Humphrey, your little Labrador or whatever, your lab, in a freaking cell that you put a 6x8 cell that you're putting 2 human or 3 human beings to cohabit in. So that's true. That's why I have a problem with the police service or policing, whether it's the police force or the army for that matter. It was developed not with good intentions.
Yeah, I believe that is the fruit of our poisonous tree as well, is we have these roots that cannot be reformed. In America, and it doesn't sound much different in Jamaica, I think the American police have 3 things that they do, and is what they always do, is the creation and maintenance of oppressed classes, and then the extraction of resources from those oppressed classes to pay for their own oppression, the prioritization of the elite property over the lives of the oppressed, and the continued genocide of the Native American people. So that's in America, and in Jamaica, you could have the continued genocide of the original Jamaicans. So because your culture, you don't have to be killed to be a genocide. Your culture is killed out because you were colonized, colonialized. That is not a word.
Colonized. So that's definitely true, and it's no different. While as you said, there's no Native Americans back home, but what is always being suppressed back home is that not a lot of people know that apart from Haiti, and we all know how Haiti has suffered for being the first black country to rebel against slavery, and they have suffered for hundreds of years for it. Jamaica was the second most rebellious plantation in the Caribbean. We had the most rebellions next to Haiti, right? So there is social DNA. It's not examined why persons are were regurgitated back into the stuff that we're used to. But
that's fucking deep, dude, when you think about it. Like, a current Jamaican police officer is still enforcing the Jamaican colonial plantation.
Because the history of the Jamaican police service is, right, and I'm pretty sure a Jamaican cop or a farmer cop will hear this podcast and agree that it was developed in, I think it was 1755, I think, but quite a long time ago, or 1850, one of those years. And it was developed solely because after slavery was abolished, they had the indentureship period, which is what is still happening now. You work, you get paid. So the labor remained, but this time you weren't beaten, or you weren't openly beaten, right? And you got
just emotionally abused.
And you actually got a piece of paper to say that you're someone.
Right, you got a piece of paper to say you're someone. You can work for basically minimum wage and still struggle like a Walmart employee has to today.
Say, well, you're someone. Hey, you're not the worst off. So from among those same slave class, they took a few persons and be like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do for you. I'm gonna give you a badge. I'm gonna give you a musket. Shit, I'm gonna even give you a horse, and you're gonna ensure that these people do what the hell we say they're supposed to do. Of course, you're gonna get more pay than them. You might not have to live in a mud hut. You'll get something a little better. You ain't white or British, but you're not them. So that's where the police force in Jamaica was. I even had a problem with the name force, because if the purpose of it theoretically was to serve, protect, and reassure, the name force comes with a certain denotation of that's not usually nothing good. So when I'm hearing, I'm like, why isn't it called the Jamaica Police Service? Because aren't you supposed to be serving the people? But no, we're the police force, so we're do what we say when we say kind of thing. That runs counter to what you're trying to pull the wool over our eyes to say it's not about us, it's about maintaining that rich class and keeping your motherfuckers where you're supposed to stay.
And we get some benefits in between.
Yeah, you get a little bit.
That feels dirty. Like, I feel dirty about that. Like, I want to bitch about it.
Yeah.
I think in part because I'm like, these motherfuckers got me to do their fucking blood for them.
You know? It's like coming out of a bad divorce, man. I swear, it's like a bad divorce. Like a bad divorce, but that's the main thing. And for me, I've always challenged myself to do as a cop. I didn't limit myself to the thinking of what was taught to me, at training school or whatever. I tried to be like, look beyond the surface. Because one, I don't trust human beings. Well, that's wrong. But then, speaking in retrospect, I didn't trust human beings to be kind to each other. So there's no way that a government is going to form a police force because we love the people oh so much. Why the hell was this being formed in the first place? So that's where I came to the realization that, this wasn't formed with any good intention, because nothing is, if you want to protect people, like invest in, make education free, allow persons to have free healthcare kind of stuff, that would be caring. But you developing caring and walking with a gun is like, right, the line gets blurred. The line gets blurred right there. So I've always challenged myself that, yes, I'm a cop, but while I'm here, what can I do to show? Even sometimes, honestly, you can't overtly do what you want to do, because if you do, you will no longer be a cop. That's the bottom line. But while you're on the inside, how can you do small pockets of shit that you can do to affect one individual, two individual, or 10 people's life? So that's personally, that's what I always do. But
where do you feel that moral scale is tipped? I think people have a large amount of people will think that there's no such thing as a good cop. Yeah, because you're already doing those bad things. But if there's no such thing as a good cop, well, then what are you going to do? You're going to encourage all the huge assholes to actually take the job? Because then how are you going to go forward? So if you are good, do you mitigate as much as possible and do that? Like, is it ultimately better for a young person to try and get in and mitigate to like stave off the system? Because it seems like that things will always change in that long arc of history. So is the best you can do to actually get in and then think you can do, but isn't that what politicians do? Like they get in, like I'm not going to be corrupted, then the first thing you fucking do is get corrupted. So what do you do?
To me, it's hard. It's always, that's where I gamble. That's where it would be a gamble, because honestly for me, you said that most people believe that there's no such thing as a good cop. Before I was a cop, I believed that shit. Because growing up in the inner city, my brothers have never had good encounters with cops. Never, not once. So when I was a cop, that was my chance to be like, try and do, like, at least be polite to people, as simple as that shit. Say hello, say good morning. Like, if I'm gonna search someone, and usually you're in an inner city community, you're holding a freaking M16 or AR-15 rifle about to search a kid. He's nervous, he's shaking, he probably want to run, because he would want to run when I was in that position. Talking that kid through the search, for example, like, this is what I'm gonna do, this is why I'm doing it, whatever. After you search him, we still have a little convo, so he's calm, and after a while he's like, yo, you're normal, because you're talking to me about soccer or some shit that normal
you're
people
detective
do.
at heart, son.
Right. So that's what. So
in for the long game.
Right. So that's where that's where it to me, if you get, I've heard that shit and I believe it, but at the end of the day, if it's a matter of your convictions and what you hold to be true. Personally, why I can sit here and say this shit is that I have never, and I would never, value the life of a human being over money. I never value money over the life of a human being. And for me, honestly, I do. Someone asked me like, okay, when I mentioned it to someone that I no longer plan to be a cop, right? And I planted the larger scale was that going into politics and social work, merge that shit to make macro changes as opposed to the individuals that I was reaching as a cop. They're like, well, when you're no longer a cop, you might not have the opportunity to do good. Like, won't you feel sad? I'm like, no, if I'm no longer a cop, I'll find other means to reach people. And they're like, okay, what if you don't? What if nothing changes? I'm like, well, even if nothing changes in my lifetime, getting started, if I can affect someone just thinking differently, fuck, I'm fine if I don't see change in my lifetime, but I'd really like if those that come after us inherit somewhere that they
True
don't
love
need.
doesn't mean you getting the attention for the love.
Simple.
You know, it
Simple.
doesn't.
For real. So I'm not hung up on trying to be like, I'm gonna do this and achieve this shit in 10 years. Persons fought and died for me to be sitting here running my mouth freely.
Yeah, I thought I could splash big enough to make a change, and then you can't. There is a long grind to it.
Exactly. So that's the thinking I use. Like, if I do something today and on to the next tomorrow, I still try to find something to do that still might make a change, even for myself too, because I want to experience the same shit I'm trying to get for you. But if not, hey, take up the mantle, do that shit, get those old thinkers out of there. But it starts somewhere.
So is that the plan for you?
That's because my ultimate plan. I got two plans, and a lot of persons ask me like, why do you merge a social work and a political science degree? Like, how does that go together? But one, what a lot of persons don't realize that social policy, because that's my concentration really, social welfare policy.
Policing is a social policy.
So
of course it is.
So I got to tell them that, I ask them that, they're saying that, it's boring, whatever. I'm like, how much do you think social policy affect your life? They're like, hardly ever, because I'm like, 95% of things is so from you military, everything is bundled up all into that social policy, social welfare policy. And when I break that shit down to them that this is what I'm doing, and the aim for me is honestly, if after finishing a master's degree, getting some age and experience under my belt, finishing a master's, hopefully a doctoral degree, I would happily go back to Jamaica to be an advisor or an employee for that matter, for the government.
You know, it's a good theory. I've dealt with this. I have a friend that tries to instill my ideas and talk to politicians and stuff. Yeah. We pretty much bang our heads against the wall, getting nowhere. But the theory is that we actually can't do it in America.
Yeah.
You have to do it someplace else. We've been talking about doing it in Liberia because we have some connections there. But a Jamaica would be definitely on the table as something that you could. It's got to be done for anyone to believe.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can convince people to do it here in America in nearly the amount of time that you could convince Jamaica to do it.
Because we're looking at like 300 plus million versus 3+ million back home. It's doable, and the beauty about it is that after I finish these degrees, qualifications, going back home with qualifications from the US, you're at the top. Even someone back home with the same degree, which schooling is harder back home, but it's US, and you know the weight that US carries around the world. So if I go home with degrees from US, that was strategic on my part, because that puts me to the top where I can actually talk to the folks who will actually effect the change that need to be made. So doing that, going back home, that shit would be easier to get done outside of the US for real. Because honestly, I think I'd lose my mind if I'm to do all that I've done and stay here, because I'd get nowhere. I'm pretty sure of that, right? But where can you make a change? And I can do that. I can do that back home, which is why I gave up 6 years worth of being a pawn, a comfortable pawn, because I had cars, you live somewhere, the pay wasn't the best, but the benefits was great, much better than what is here. So doing this stuff to go back home, to be in the government, whether as an advisor, as a minister, or whatever it takes to actually get some, because laws are passed way easier back home. So the moment you get enough persons behind that stuff, it can be done.
Sure. Like, I'm inspired, really. I gotta tell you the truth. I mean, it is. It's been. I feel like I've been doing that thing that you're talking about, being afraid of. You know, just banging your head against the wall, talking to people. That's not really going to get anywhere when the culture won't change fast enough. Exactly. But the idea of it changing somewhere else is like, that's all I want. Like, to me, I feel the same way you do. If I can't make change, if somehow I got to you, and then you go make the change, and then that comes back, it's like, okay.
Still, the world is globalized. So if that happens in one place, best believe it's gonna get, if it's even just the attention, it's gonna get the attention of folks, and that's how it is. Change is ugly, it's slow, but well, it's not. It didn't have to be. That's the point, because we're all capable of making change pretty and fast, but we are cultured to stick to our old ways and cling on to. Whenever we hear logic, we run to whatever extreme. So if I'm a leftist, I'm a run to my left and cling on to that shit. Likewise, because I don't want to be a flip-flopper, even though I was wrong for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But that's the culture that needs to change. Nothing is wrong with I flip-flop so much times, because you will grow, you will learn. So that's a huge thing. So that's, as you said, that's the thing. You might not be able to achieve it right here in this moment, but I'm not discouraged by that, because it's never about me. That's the bottom line. It's never about me, and I really do just like to, I just like to stay behind the scenes and just make a lot of changes, because I don't need anyone saying thank you, but it's just that's how life should be. We should all be on a level playing field. I don't need to be a king or be looked at any different from you for doing it. We can make that change and we go out and we play soccer or whatever. I don't want to be in a palace and be hailed just because we make change. It's just the right thing to do. That's the thing. It's just the right thing to do.
Damn, brother. So where can everybody else find you?
Okay, so I can be found on Facebook, Migs Prezi Wallace. So it's spelled M-I-G-Z, the middle name P-R-E-Z-I, and Wallace is the last name. Instagram, I am Migs_I am, MIGZ_I am. And I be building.
And it's Z for everybody in America.
Z. Oh, Z. Oh, okay. So it's Migs, I am. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's freaking inspiring, brother. And I hope everybody out there follows you and keeps up and supports in any way they can what you're talking about, because I want to, and I feel kind of a little renewed.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, the tough wars.
We're not that tune now, bro.
But watch it. Now it's uptown and from downtown. Watch that. I'll be uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money ain't funny, yeah. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money ain't funny, yeah. This uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money ain't funny, yeah. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money ain't funny, yeah. False leaders to rise up every day. False leaders telling them they find out working with the poor. Kind of way. It's uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money ain't funny, yeah. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money ain't funny, yeah. Office uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money, Sunday time. Money for the rich and no money for you and for me. No money ain't funny, yeah. If you think it's joke, I make. Just give uptown a check. Kind of way. Get right now. I'll be uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money ain't funny, yeah. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money ain't funny, yeah. I'll be uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money ain't funny, yeah. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money. Wind up it now. Drum me now. Kakai tick be doom, the bluff be doom, kakai be doom, the bluff kakai be doom, the bluff be doom, be do be doom, be do be doom doom, be do be doom doom, be do be doom doom, be do rhythm now, be do be doom doom, chop, kai, bluff 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 boy, the back back boy, back back boy, harvest uptown and farming downtown, can't you see? No money, Antonia. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money, Antonia. If you think it's joke, I make. Just give uptown a check. The dog's dinner. Dog's dinner. Yes. Uptown, can't you see? No money, Antonia. No money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money, Antonia. Harvest uptown and the farming downtown, can't you see? No money, Antonia. Money for the rich, but no money for you and for me. No money, take it down. Money for the rich, but no for you and for me.
Stuck back with me again. So, yeah, I mean, no surprise there to me. Miguel came off just as charming as I remember him to be. And I told him that I was finally putting this together because we had this conversation. I'm pretty sure this was nearly a year ago, if not more than a year ago. I'm going to be pretty confident to say that it was more than a year ago, a year and a half ago. And he ended up saying that he wanted to add something to this, so I'm going to wait a little while to see, before publishing this out, see if he wanted to add his own voice back to this a little bit more. As you can see in the episode, we went over his experiences in SWAT and as a police officer, growing up in Jamaica, Jehovah Witness thing, which is another interesting thing. My buddy Avi, who I talk about a lot, who also grew up in Jehovah Witness, and I've heard there's a YouTube guy called Hard Bastard who was a Jehovah Witness growing up. And all of them seem to have this common thread of being able to see through the matrix a little bit more. That experience, that manipulation that religion gave them in the Jehovah Witnesses ends up being some kind of key that allows them to see later. That experience seems to be very valuable if they can get out of it. But I guess maybe that is what came first, the chicken or the egg, or these people are ready to see through, and that's how they got out of Jehovah Witnesses, because they were able to do this as they were Jehovah Witnesses. It's not like being a Jehovah Witness gave them the skill. They obviously got out, so they woke up beforehand. But discuss what good a cop can do. I still advise people, and I think you have to go in. I don't know what other choice you have. No, what can you do if somebody else is always going to be there? It's almost like that politician's conundrum. If you're going to go in and be evil, and we're almost back to the benevolent dictator issue. But if someone else is going to do it, it's at least better that you do it, right? So it's going to be better that you, who is hearing these ideas that we speak about in reforming justice in a different way, in a different light, as a public health perspective and as an issue of the humanities and social sciences, if you see it that way and you're in position as a police officer and we start changing it, well then you're in position. You're ready to go to do the transition. I don't have to convince you as somebody who's either likely to quit or needs a lot of coaching up to buy into this system, because they want to do the violent aspect. They bought into that system. So if you're willing to do it, I don't see any other option besides encouraging that. What is good even was discussed. The golden rule was discussed. The the matrix, as I thought we would do, and what the actual purpose of policing is. Kind of this whole concept that most people listening to me are even trying to develop. Period. So I think there was a lot of lessons there. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll spread it around and share it, because this is the only thing we have is sharing these things amongst ourselves. And if you can be like Miguel and talk to a school, get me to come out there, then we can do one of these conversations as well. Get your input on the record and help me get a bigger audience to speak to. That we can, maybe these arguments are ones that you're having with your students or your friends, wherever you are. If it's a big workplace, I can do those too. And maybe you want a little bit of backup, a little ammo, a little bit of authority and credibility to the things that you've been trying to explain to them, whether Black Lives Matter, ending the drug war, gun control, any of those things out there. And we got to discuss these things. I'll go to any school, left, right, black, white. I don't care. That's all dumb shit. The whole point, preferably to me, is to get out of the groupthink, and I hope you all get out of the groupthink too. Tribalism and the ism, period, or what kill. We got to just be one people. All right. So next time. Peace. Oh, not so fast, everybody. Before rendering this production, let me add a little bit more, because speaking on the fly, as I did earlier, is such a bad idea. I know I can appear pretty good at it, but too much is missed, and, well, too much is missed when I do it anyway. Miguel got tied up at work and doing things, so I don't have his recording yet. Maybe he's just on BPT, I'm not sure, but eventually I'll add it to the end of this. I need to get this rendered and produced so I have it on time, as I promised you guys. So eventually, one day at the end, there will be Miguel's comments at the end of this, at the very end. So it'll be a bit of an Easter egg in the future. So if you're watching this in 2018, this thing, I doubt it's going to be there. But there are 4 things I wanted to add, and we'll go over those. But I need to acknowledge the kindness and work of Miguel's aunt, Professor Bailey, at Westfield University, who made me feel welcomed and visit during my visit to Westfield University. And I don't know, I'm willing to bet that a great many of the Wallace and Bailey families have this trait of being exceptional human beings. I really look up to people like them because I feel they get part of life so much better than I do. But first, walking around, I see many people living and caring for one another, exemplifying that human cooperation I speak of so much, and is a critical assumption underlying all of my work. But that cooperation is something I do not personally understand. I use the analogy or metaphor of Neo in the Matrix because of this reality. Though it's an insufficient stand-in, the overall concepts are profoundly true. Even my perceived role in the situation, like Neo, who is treated as a Christ-like figure, is actually a false messiah, as am I. It is all about the system. I am obsessed with, and I've opened my eyes to the system. I observe it, and I try to understand it with every breath I take. But that has really blinded me from living in the beauty of people and nature. People like Miguel and Professor Bailey help ground me, and I envy their ability to cast it aside and focus on what can be changed. If it's like a snowstorm, I focus on the blizzard, and I can get more of your people out than anyone else. As arrogant as that sounds, it is what I excel at, and I welcome any challengers. But my critical flaw is that I can dismiss the humanity of the individual to benefit the whole, and I completely miss the beauty of each snowflake. The bottom line is that you need people like me to push and lead during chaos, but the systems and people must balance and focus passions. I am always looking for a fight, a hammer looking for nails. Use me wisely and keep people like me surrounded by the uncredited heroes. And second, I hinted at a pet theory I hold during this discussion, and I do not have evidence. It is just an observation, which I have heard others also noting. The most conceptualized version I listen to labels it as scouts. But basically, I believe that there is a physical Darwinian-style evolution taking place in humans pertaining to the levels of empathy. I think it has something to do with the gradual enlarging of the frontal lobe, which restricts space and resources dedicated to violence, impulse, and fear. The people more affected by this change used to really stand out, but as they increase, they become more common and blend into the background better, but are still labeled, as they were in the past, as problematic and rebellious because they interrupt the tribally based social systems we have set up and depend on. It would be interesting to explore further, but I work in things more immediate than evolution. So third, to speak a little more in my admiration of Miguel, I've pretty much abandoned hearing TV show solicitations. They used to come in all the time. And what I discussed is this does not seem to have a platform within the structure of the New York, Los Angeles, and DC thing. But one pitch from CNN International recently felt doable, and their idea is to use my policing strategy on cold cases, which bridges the audience wants of a crime drama and my wants of an education. The case from Jamaica came up as a possibility, and with their conceding to my insistence that Miguel would be my partner, I went to LA and filmed the promo pitch for it, and they're actively looking for a buyer for it now. I'm unsure of how the process works, but if you want to see that show, complain to someone. I have a copy of the promo, and it's cheesy, but it is neat. I will release it when they say I can. Last I knew, the tentative title was CNN International Cold Case. It was like, CNN, oh, no. This is CNN International Cold Case. I don't even know. I probably screwed that up, but that's the way it sounds. It's pretty funny. But hopefully one day Miguel and I will be able to do something productive with that approach or some approach like that. Most pitches have been centered on violence, porn, and poverty pimping. That's just not my style. But the CNN thing, the idea was good. I think it had potential. We'll see what pans out. I'm kind of on my last leg with dealing with that kind of stuff, as I've talked about before. The fourth and final thing I wanted to mention is the music in this episode. I wanted to mention the music in this episode beyond the show notes. The songs are from it's called Word, Sound, and Power, a Jamaican reggae documentary. And you can find that on YouTube. I just felt that it was very humbling and enjoyable. I can see the common threads of the Jamaican culture that found me in real life. One of my best friends, a man I would trust with my life and yours, and is also my former partner, he's also Jamaican. He's second gen, so if you've heard me before, then as far as I'm concerned, he's American. But his family imparted those values of the Jamaican culture on him, and the work ethic and humanity. There's something different there, and I think it comes through in this music that's in this as well. So please enjoy the rest. Hopefully one day Miguel will have his thing, and thanks for listening.
Amazing. Ain't that amazing? That's amazing.
Generally dry day on Wednesday with sunny periods. However, there may be more cloud in the southeast where it will be breezier. After a chilly start, it will be mostly dry on Thursday with some sunny spells. However, it may be rather cloudy in the southeast. Patchy rain will arrive in the north.
So, how's it going, Michael? We haven't spoken in a while. It's good to talk to you, my brother. So, let's get right into it, huh? Since the last time we spoke, so quite a few things have changed since then. The biggest change that has happened since March when we had that sit down is that I've now graduated college. So I graduated with a bachelor's of social work, and I am currently working for DCF. That's the Department of Children and Families. That's here in Massachusetts. So yeah, big changes. Still fighting the good fight, trying to make a difference. However, I find working at DCF is very similar to working in Jamaica as a detective of sexual offenses and child abuse. It's eerily similar to what I did before. And the acronyms are similar to JCF for Jamaica Constabulary Force, DCF Department of Children and Families. So even the acronyms are very similar. So I've realized that and I still realize encountering cops, I still realize that there's still a bit of a broken system that exists both here and in Jamaica, and it's not going anywhere. So I've noticed, and this is just a pit stop on the way to achieving new stuff, new things. But I cannot go without mentioning how similar it is in appreciating a report of a kid being abused. I did that before, but from a law enforcement perspective. So the difference is that now I'm not actually making arrests. So when you get the reports, we refer those reports to the DA's office, the prosecutor's office, and they take the law enforcement perspective from there. No, I'm more from the child protective stand of the issue, where we put in place services to support the families, strengthen the families, keep the children safe, obviously. And DCF has a notorious reputation for quote-unquote snatching kids. And by no means that's not what happens. There are instances where kids have to be removed, but it has to be extreme circumstances that render no choice but removing the kids to ensure their safety. So that happens from time to time, but only in extreme cases where it is absolutely warranted. So I must commend them for trying to work hard where that is concerned. But yeah, I'm just taking in all the experiences that I can from this job at the moment, and it's a pit stop on the long journey of self-actualization. So doing what I'm doing right now, gaining experience, helping folks as we go along, still trying to be a better person. So that's what has been up, and I look forward to updating you some more as these changes progress.